Oh, there we are. Hello.
Hello. Welcome to Rockin the Love. I am Robyn.
And I'm Gil, and we're excited to be here today. It is Wednesday, November the 9th already. Is
And
that crazy?
Gil is masquerading as our producer who
Yes.
who just came back online. And, and this is why we have a bit of a guffaw in the beginning. So we're happy to be here. We're very excited for our show today. We have a very special guest with us, Reverend Martha Quintana, and we're going to do some deep dive into love in the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What's this whole thing? Rockin' the Love is all about relationship, and what could be more relational than people around the world understanding one another. So we're gonna talk about that a little bit. So how's your week been?
Why
I'm
it
talking to
didn't feel,
you.
I know it didn't feel like that was the end of the sentence. My week is good. My week is, I don't know. I need to think of a new answer because it feels like every week is so crazy and action packed and full. And I'm not sure that that's really what I want to keep affirming. But
Mm-hmm.
it just seems like time is. I don't know. There time there. I'm no time and space girl, but there. It just is going so fast. I mean, it's November. It's the end of
I
the
know.
year.
I know. I know. I was talking to our sister earlier, and I'm like, well, I'm thinking about the next trip, not this trip. I'm already, thinking ahead to the next thing that we're all doing and trying to get it all in order and in place.
Yeah,
So it's like that, right?
it is like that. It is like that. So, if you're out there listening, let us know because we love to hear you and talk to you and see who's out there. I see that Wayne is here, our rainbow love man from Canada, and we just love to say hello to you all and have you join in the conversation. It's much more fun like that, right?
And we have our Facebook user friend, which I'm not sure who that is. Do you know who that is?
No,
Okay. Well, we're happy to have you anyway, and hang with us. So what else? What have we learned this week? What's come up?
you tell me.
Okay. Well, it's interesting. I was thinking about this, and the thing that's come up for me is I'm learning how to count on people and allow them to do things and let
Ah,
it happen. Yeah, because I realize that while there's some things that I do and need to do, there's a whole lot of stuff I don't need to do, and other people do it. It's just allowing it to happen and watching what comes forth from it. So it's pretty cool. Oh, it's Myrna. Hi, Myrna.
hola, Mirna. Yeah, that's a big lesson. That's a huge lesson, and not to deny other people their joy. You know,
Hmm.
they're wanting to support you and other things that you're doing, that align with their views.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah. So that's one of the things, and I'm learning how connected we are. It's amazing to me how many different people are connected to what's going on here at where I am on Sunday mornings. And people that I know from other places that were, oh, hey, I saw you. And it's like, oh, wow, hello.
Yeah, no, you must. This is why I tell you you can't do certain things anymore because it's all recorded and and it'll show up when you least want it to. But it's
Yeah,
true. I mean, I told you that I had a couple of people say to me this week, "Oh yeah, I listened to your show and blah 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 blah." And I'm thinking, "You listen to my show? Wow!" I mean, because I'm like, I don't know who's out there listening, so it's very interesting, this living your life out loud for real, you know. Like
Yeah.
there's no hiding, and it
No.
can all come back to you on videotape. So yeah.
Well, we're beyond videotape. It just comes back digitally now.
Well,
So
whatever the
you're
heck.
you're a little in the past there,
I'm
sweetie.
in the past. I'm rolling old school. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So that's exciting. I don't know what I learned this week. I live with teenagers, so I repeatedly relearn patience, and you know, to truly believe what, you know, our new thought teachings teach us, that, you know, things are not as they appear, and, you know, things like that. I'm constantly putting those kind of things into play when I like, oh my god, this situation again, this conversation. I'm like, no, look at it with new eyes, breathe, it's a new day, things are changing. So yeah, mine is that.
So what comes to my mind is you are more than this, right? Um, singing the song in choir and all those things that truly we're more than that. But
Right.
it doesn't always feel that way,
No,
especially with teenagers.
especially especially with teenagers.
Ah, yeah.
I'm thinking as you say that, because Myrna's here, it makes me think of, you know, when, like, the difference in ages, like how much we love, like when they're little and they're, you know, so cute and all of that, and then they grow up and give you a run for your money for a while until you can reconnect. But Myrna, I want to share the story about your son. Is that okay? I'm gonna try to wait for an answer, but I think it's okay. She was telling the sweetest story. She sent pictures the other day of, she was cleaning the house after her husband and her had been sick. They'd been home, and, you know, she was finally got to cleaning the house, and she's cleaning and tidying up. And as she's doing this, her son is putting stuffed animals and things up on the couch, and she said, are you making a mess again? And he said, no, mommy. He said, I'm making an altar like you did.
Mm.
She'd just taken down, like, the dead altar, and, you know, but it's so sweet. Isn't that sweet?
Yeah, that is sweet. That is
It's
sweet.
like, I love it. I love that when they're our greatest teachers, you know, and then when you really get that the audience is listening, you know. And I mean, it was so cute. And he told her, you know, he said, I can't take mine down. It's going to have to stay up for a few days. I'm not ready to take it down yet, you know. And so, you know, they left it up for a few days. But it's just so sweet.
Oh, that is sweet.
Yeah.
That is sweet. All right. Thank you, Myrna, for that story.
I know that
Thank
could
you.
have been
Thank
my
you.
good news.
Yeah, really. Really. So speaking of good news, do you have some good news for us
It's
today?
time. It's
It
time
is time.
for, and here's the good news.
Yes, indeed. What do you
Uh,
got?
I do. I have a story about a woman whose name is Ari, and she is, I can't remember where she's from. I want to say like Switzerland, something like that. And she cleans houses for women for free, and she will go and clean their house. And but I'm looking for the article because it's like she's now has a sponsor that's a sponge company, and she will travel all over the world to clean houses for women that can't clean their house for whatever reason. If they, you know, they've been depressed and they've just started living in that kind of squalor type thing. And there's, I wanted to show pictures, but somehow I've lost the article. um yeah, she goes in and scrubs. I mean, it's like, you know, it's the disgusting kind of cleaning. It's not like tidying up. Like I made my cobweb in the corner. I felt so much better about it because it's the kind like we're scraping up the dirt off of people's sinks and bathtubs, and for people that just can, and piles of dishes, and the kind where it's really an issue. And she'll go and she cleans it for free because it's her joy, and she says no one can ever pay her to do it, but she just wants to keep helping people and changing lives.
Mm. Wow, that is an incredible gift to people.
Yeah.
Because knowing from my own experience, if one is at a point where they can't muster whatever it is to do the things that they need to do for themselves, it's usually with good reason, in the sense that they've got a lot going on somewhere, and a lot of depression and a lot of things like that are really hard to move through. And
Yeah.
the various ways that we can support one another when we hit those spots are so important. So
Yes.
important. Yeah.
Yeah, and she's 29 years old. I mean, the picture of she's beautiful. She's blonde and perky, and and this is just what she wants to do. And I just think it's so sweet.
Yeah, really. That's cool. That's cool. Well, I have a good news, and this is all about building new pyramids. So there we go. So I have a picture for you here. This is a new pyramid in Egypt, been built out in the desert, and it is completely made of plastic bottles and plastic garbage stuff pulled from the Nile River.
It's crazy.
About 20 tons. And this is part of a project, you might be able to read there, 100-year cleanup. They're starting a project to get people working to cleaning up the earth over the next 100 years, and keep pulling these kinds of things out, and changing our environment, changing our life, changing where we live.
It's amazing.
And I think this is just a picture of how much there is to do. But I thought it's really neat that that's what people are doing, and they're willing to do it.
Yeah, I feel like it's so. I mean, maybe it's me, maybe it's them, but I feel like there's so much more global awareness now, and that like a lot of times in other countries, they're behind our thinking. I know when I lived in Mexico, like there was no recycling, and there was no things like that they hadn't caught up at that particular time. And so I think it's so great to see, like, some of the stories we've been reading are about other countries and faraway countries, and it's so good to hear that we're all doing this together.
Yeah, and they they could clearly teach us a thing or two. So there you go. Hi, Sherry's joining us today.
Sherry, Reverend Sherry Greer.
Thanks for being here. Well,
all right.
Are we ready to move on?
We are.
All right. So thank you, everybody. We are going to be back in just a couple minutes with Reverend Martha Quintana, so you don't want to go away. And stay with us here on New Thought Media Network.
Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, for your continued support. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown Atlanta, for your monthly contribution. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, for your monthly contribution. And please help us welcome Om Center for Spiritual Living in La Mesa, California. Thank you for your monthly donation. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, for your most generous donation. And a special thanks to Hefferlin Foundation for your generous technology grant. And Suze Ajit, thank you for your very generous donation. And a super special thank you to Dr. Tracy Brown, RSCP. Thanks for being a super donor. And a big shout out to all our committed donors.
And we're back.
I'm Gil.
And I'm Robyn.
And we are here today with Rockin the Love. Our theme today is Rockin the World. Are you excited?
I am excited. I like that topic.
I do too.
And I'm excited to introduce our guest because she is someone I think who rocks the world.
Yes, absolutely. So we have on our show today, there she is already here, Reverend Martha Quintana. Hi, Reverend Martha. How are you?
Hello.
So just a little bit about Reverend Martha. First of all, I've had the opportunity to follow her in a center that she founded and cared for at least 11 years in New Mexico. And she has then expanded out into working with global services through CSL, through Centers for Spiritual Living. And I love this, that you've had recently some opportunities to speak in the areas of spirituality and social environmental justice. And I just realized that my good news had something to do with that. So that's kind of cool. So thank you so much for being here. There's more we could say, but it'll come out in the wash. So,
well, I want to
Robyn?
say that I just think Martha is so cool. That's all. I just think Martha, to me, you are somebody who really walks their talk and such. I don't know. You're just, I'm just so excited to have you here. So I'm going to stop
Thank
talking.
you. Gosh, I hope I can live up to all this. Okay. What do y'all want to know? Okay, let's talk.
All right. So what in the world does it mean that, when you say global services, what's that about in terms of like our CSL? What are you doing? Or what's your goal? Maybe that's better.
Over time, it's all evolved, but during the pandemic, the world got really small. And because we were all stuck in our houses all over the world, people began to talk to each other a lot more on Zoom, like through technology and that kind of thing. And we began to see how much more we had in common than were our differences, and through that, it's like the world is expanding again, is in that people are getting back into their lives and doing what they do every day and that kind of thing. But what's happened is that the connection has stuck around, and there's been an evolution at Global Services. So Global Services is the department that connects home office um, with all of the countries outside the United States and Canada. And what's happening now is that it used to be like the United States and Canada and then the rest of the world, but so many more people inside the United States and outside of the United States are already independently in conversation, that we're actually becoming a conduit, more like a communication uh, for people inside and outside. And there are common projects that are evolving. And Science of Mind is translating into so many cultures that it's really a lot of fun to be here right now. It's developing a worldwide web, kind of like Indra's web, where every person is a diamond in that web, and it creates light all around the globe. So what we do at Global Services is we help works get translated. We help, and like things like practitioners renewing their license, ministers renewing their license. But the exciting stuff is helping people discover science of mind through either individual studies, study groups, creating organization, that sort of thing.
And you also do some work with helping funding people that want to teach science of mind in other places, right?
Right. We have every year Centers for Spiritual Living donates some money, and we have a group called the Global Services Committee who does all of the vetting and the interviewing. And so we help, for example, this year, the Britain School in Kenya. It's a school founded by one of our practitioners who helps students in the slums using the philosophy of science of mind. And so we have like that, a woman down in Peru, Maite Santana Cortez, who is, she does stories for children. She does puppets and mime, and she writes children's stories, science of mind. And and then there's a woman also in Peru who works with women in disadvantaged neighborhoods. And, and we fund, this year we funded helped to fund a retreat in Switzerland and Geneva, which brought people from all countries all over Europe and Ukraine, so that we could all study science of mind together. We helped with funding to Chapala, which hosts all of the people out of Latin America. They come together to talk about science of mind. Last year, for the first time, because the ministerial program had not been in Spanish, and last year, for the first time, we graduated 11 people to be ministers in Latin America. And then this past year was 3 more people. So we have 14 people because of the translations that we've done. And so anyway, I mean, I could go on and on, but it's wonderful. It's the work that we're doing, and all about the philosophy of science of mind, which, as you know, allows us to connect spirit all over the world.
Yeah, I was thinking as you were saying that, what do you find when people are going into places where, quote, science of mind hasn't been taught? I mean, are they really finding that people already have a really good understanding, in a sense, because of their own spiritual work that they've done in whatever ways? I mean, that there's kind of a common language that happens?
Well, I think what's happening is people are beginning to realize that Newtonian physics isn't at play anymore, and it's really quantum physics. And so it's becoming more and more apparent, even to, for example, we have a minister who's working with us out of Africa, and he's a minister out of a traditional religion, and he began to say, I've been thinking a lot about physics and science and how it interrelates with spirituality. And it just came to me that I needed to find out more about that. And he got on the internet and he began to do his studying. and he came to us, eventually made his way over to Science of Mind. And I think because in Newtonian physics, the person who's conducting the experiment stands outside the experiment. I'm watching the apple fall from the tree, for example, and it hits the ground. Okay, hey,
Yeah.
I'll write that down, right?
A
So
equals B.
so then in quantum physics, as you know, energy goes along in waves as long as it's unobserved. The moment it becomes observed, it collapses into particles. And so once that happens, then potentiality appears. And so what we've come to know from quantum physics is that the observer is as important to the experiment as is the experiment being observed. So what we know and that's really important for us in Science of Mind, because if I'm praying, before I pray, there's all this energy going along in waves. But the moment that I go into treatment or our form of affirmative prayer and I tap into that, and we have that demonstration, as we call it, then I see I've created that mold in consciousness, but it's my observance of that energy at play that has now collapsed it into potentiality. And now we wait for the manifestation. And it ain't all that novel anymore. It's becoming, it's becoming more apparent to people all over the world that there's something to this. That eventually, as Ernest Holmes said, there'll come a time when there are no miracles anymore. And it'll be because our understanding is there. And so this philosophy is going out in front of us and seeping into people's hearts and minds long before we even get there. And then in many, many instances, they come back. It's not like missionary work of old, where people went in and said, hey, here's a Science of Mind book. Let's talk about it,
Yeah. It's very different. And that's what I was thinking too, about how many, the whole concept that Ernest Holmes went by was gathering the best of all of it, and sort of putting that together. And then as we've moved forward, the frame of the change in our understanding of physics and those kinds of things has changed it all, right? I mean, now we see it from that perspective. But we've been so all of this stuff has always been out there somewhere, right? Everybody at some level has had some understanding of this idea that really we're all we're all created good in the first place. And we have the opportunity to move in that circle, and change our lives.
Well, one of the things, and I know you and Robyn do this really, really well, is as spiritual leaders or just spiritual people, our job becomes to find the life in something. Where is that spirit of the group? Where's that spirit? What motivates a person? Where is the spirit in you? Where's the spirit in me? What motivates me? What causes me to get up in the morning and go like, yeah, God, this is a good day. And so it's that idea, my God, and I'm using the word God in the broadest sense possible. My God is a God of life. And so what is it that makes me come alive? What is it that makes this group come alive, our community? The beautiful thing about the environment is that that's where life is. And we're having to pay attention, because if we're not nurturing life on our planet, then what are we doing? If I nurture life on the planet, in my environment, then I'm nurturing it in myself. That's spirituality. So there isn't anything that we're talking about that's outside the realm of spirit.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's just so interesting now, because I feel like you said, everyone is getting on the same page, but from different angles, so it's like, it's still interesting how many people don't know about us, because you hear them talk and you're like, oh, and they're like, no, I mean, people don't know what's out there, that supports what they're thinking.
Well, and part of the problem, I think I've come to see is like we require everyone to do the heavy lifting, you know. I have to take full responsibility for my life. Holy yeah, what do you mean I have to take full responsibility for my life? You know, it has to be someone's fault, right? You know, come on. He did it, she
Well,
did it, somebody did it. And but if I embody the one, there's only oneness and my eyes are seeing these things out there, then it has to exist in me somewhere. And if I want it to be healed out here, I have to heal it in here. And that, and and I'm going to be really frank, I think that's what makes us unpopular sometimes.
oh, I think you're right. I think you're
No,
right.
you know,
Yeah.
because people are you know, it's easier if I go somewhere. Will you forgive me for my sins? Sure. Here you go. You get a pass. And, you know, and I'm like, thank you. Oh, thank you. But I've not grown out of that experience, right? I've not looked at it. I've not wrestled with my shadow. I've not looked myself in the eye and said, really, what are you doing? Where are you going? How, you know, evolution is calling you, and do you dare to answer the door? And it might take you away from your family. It might take you away from all the things you've ever known. That is flipping scary.
Yeah.
You know, change is flipping scary because we tell people change your thinking, change your life. Um, you know, but what they don't tell you is that what that means. Because for a lot of people, you know, and I know I've had this thought, hey, if you change, I'll be happy. Come on. You just got to change. Come on. Work. You change, you know? And so, but it's like to really change your thinking, change your life. That may take me out of everything I've ever known.
Yeah, and it's beyond a vision board. You know, it's beyond just putting it up what you want, you know, it's really doing that deep dive
I, I'm
individual.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, sweetie. But I'm thinking of of the way you know you hear change your thinking, change your life. That's intimidating because it means if I change my thinking, my life is going to change, and we all know that that's exactly what happens. You know, you start changing things, and things start moving and shifting, and then as a result of that, things that you didn't expect to move and shift start moving and shifting. You know, so it's not like that's a particularly comforting thought all the time. And you mentioned that people have that, you know, that's kind of like a negative, but people also sometimes look at the process of going inside to figure out how to shift what's outside as being selfish and internal, and we never looking outside of ourselves because we're always looking back, you know. And I think that's kind of an interesting conundrum in communicating what that really, you know, what it really means. And yet all the spiritual masters have done what? Spent time in the desert, got, you know, sitting under the tree. They've all done the work with themselves.
Well, I truly believe that there's a higher self that's constantly calling us, and to really tap into that potentiality, to see it and to collapse it into potentiality, to have that goal in mind, to have that vision there. That's what begins the healing, because all of the things that stand between me, any obstacles, internal obstacles between me and this goal that I have, or me and this vision I have, that's where the true healing comes. Because it's not just about healing. I've met people who will say, I just want to heal. And I go, well, what does that look like? You know, I just want to heal. So they spend all their days healing, you know, but that's not that's not a life. You know, a life is, am I going to this place? Am I going to this vision that I have, that my soul is yearning for, that the reason I came here to do this? And sometimes we don't really even consciously know. All I know sometimes is like, I just want to get there. I just know it. And then it comes into play. And then I go, oh, that's the land I'm headed toward. You know, so it's like, you're right. Because as long as you're just healing for healing's sake, whatever that means, I don't know what that, you know, because we all have
Right.
a ton of shadow, right? just because of race consciousness and culture and that kind of thing. But to be like going to this, either you're running towards something or running away from something. And so I'd always like to think I'm running toward it. Although I do my fair share of running away, I imagine, but
Ah, yes, the joys.
So it makes me question, like, like we just graduated practitioners from the Ukraine, and it makes me wonder, like, who, how, how did that, who had the courage to really, start with the teaching there and really keep going when there's so much threat of, beyond what we experience here, obviously,
well,
government.
yeah, in Ukraine, that's been a couple of teachers. The last and now there's actually like a third wave. So there was an original teacher, and I'm the
Is that
name of
Barbara Leger?
no, she was the second wave.
Okay.
So she went in, and Barbara Leger was the second wave, and she did some incredible work there. And this is a land where she went in at a time where there was any kind of religion is frowned upon. She was investigated by the KGB. She had to have real courage to go there. And now, because of her work there is a whole new group of practitioners who are taking it on their own. And so they've connected this new group of practitioners. Reverend Barbara is still doing her work with some groups in Ukraine. And then there's a group of practitioners who are striking out on their own, and they've partnered with Mile High Church in Denver, Colorado,
Oh, wow.
to even go farther. And so that's really exciting. And so it's allowing partnerships we're beginning to see a few more partnerships.
How does one be a practitioner in the midst of somewhere like Ukraine, in the middle of a war and all the stuff that's going on?
I met up with, there were 5 practitioners from Ukraine that went to the retreat in Geneva, Switzerland. And I was fortunate enough to meet up with them there. And they were so inspiring because they said, because of their faith, because of their ability to treat every day, it made them safe. And they go to a park, they gather every day. They've been working with people in park doing yoga. They invite people into their homes to do science of mind. They have a meditation every day, twice a day, with people all around the world, and it's facilitated by practitioners out of Switzerland and the United States. And so every day that meditation happens, it's a little 10 to 15 minute meditation, and the practitioners in Geneva said it meant the world to them that these people were doing that. And they said if it weren't for science of mind, they would be so scared. And it was like, oh my God. I mean, so I was very inspired by them. Their faith, the same out of Africa, their faith, there's the resources and, often the lack of resources. I mean, because one of the things you have to recognize is around the world, there is enough food on the planet to feed everybody. What stops it is it's the delivery systems. They're either blocked by politics. There are things going on, maybe war in some countries. So what keeps people from actually being able to eat is the delivery systems. It's not that we don't have it. It's that we can't get it to the right people, to all the people.
Right.
Yeah, which goes back to the whole concept that we often talk about, and that is that, supply and what's the reality of what spirit has created. Well, there's plenty. It's always plenty. There's always more, right? But then why does it not look like that sometimes?
Right.
And that's what we run into.
Right. And that's where science of mind changes consciousness. Prayer is prayer is immense. And the word prayer that comes out of traditional traditional religions, you know, it leaves a feeling, which a lot of people take with them. It leaves a feeling of, you know, I'm talking to some capricious, arbitrary dude in the sky with a white beard, and, you know, and is he in the mood to give Martha what she wants? You know, please God, this time, please, you know. And so arbitrary, no, she's making me mad today. She can't start her car. You know, I'm just gonna mess with her today, you know. But but we're in a place now where we're beginning to see that we are co-creators in our own world. And that's the beauty of this philosophy around the world. And so culturally, what's been incredible to me and humbling to me is to see how it translates into all of the different cultures, and that people see the people from Peru. My God, they said, if we knew what you knew. I was there in 2000 when I first went there in 2006. I was fortunate enough to speak at a conference. 300 people showed up to this conference in Lima. And they said, and I went out before the conference started and just talked to people. I said, oh, are you familiar with Science of Mind? They said, no. All they had seen was a radio ad that said, change your thinking, change your life. And they said,
Wow.
we know if we could change our thinking, we could get rid of drug addiction, poverty, domestic violence. They were looking at this. If we knew what you know, we could change these things. And I left there. At that time, I just started ministerial school. And I left there so humbled because I was hanging with the choir all the time, you know, so took us for granted. But what the work we do is so important because it's changing the face of society, that we don't have to hurt each other, that the spirit, the life that lives in each of us can be what goes out in front of us. And people are seeing this all over the world. And that's what's important. And it's important that we are that thing we want to be, you know, that we, you know, that kind of world we want to see. It's important that we are that person, because even if I never leave my home, even if I never left it, then I would change the world. I mean, because if you think about Ernest Holmes, he did not like to travel, but if you go to he would send people out ahead of him. He did not like going places. But yet, if you go to the archives, there are degrees from all over the world for him. Italy, Germany, Mexico, I mean, all over the world, because his philosophy went out in front of him. He was truly a modern day mystic, but he showed that the energy that we have, it really does go out in front of us. We are broadcasting stations. And so it's important that we be that. And that's why I think, like I said earlier, people like sometimes go, oh no, man, this is too hard. I don't want to do this. You know, it is hard, but it's also very rewarding.
Yeah, it's definitely hard. And I would think that, you know, it's like once you've rung the bell, it's also hard to go back to the other way. But yeah, it's definitely challenging.
Yes.
So I think John's statement is very interesting. Washington, D.C. coordinated massive prayer for peace one summer, and crime dropped significantly. And we know, you know, when we focus on what it is that we are, part of the change your thinking, change your life is we change our thinking from what we don't want to what we want, to what we envision rather than what we're trying to eradicate necessarily, you know.
Yes.
And it shifts the whole thing. You know, recently there's come about the idea of anti-racism, and I was just reading in a book, and the gentleman talked about how, well, that's great, but if we, you know, when do we win that war, if you will? You know, because we have no idea where we're going. We're just trying not to have racism, but what does it really give us the inclusion that we want? Does it really give us the belonging that we want? It just, you know, that kind of thing. So that's my thought.
You know, there was a story here in Albuquerque of this young woman, a Muslim woman, had gone into a grocery store, and another woman comes up to her and takes the scarf off her head, just snatches it off her head,
Mm.
and was just vile with her. And people who didn't know this young woman surrounded the woman, and they got the offender away. The employees took the offender out of the store. They banned her from the store, and all of these people, they were basically restorative justice. They told her how much they supported her and that she had the ability to worship in the way she needed to worship. And it just, reading this story,
Mm.
made me just warmed my heart, because these people who didn't believe the way she believed, but they definitely honored that she believed that. And so it's happened, you know. That's where it starts, is in our heart. When I see that, even though I may not be the same person you are, I may not have your lifestyle and traditions, but man, I honor it, and I will defend your right to have it, you know. And so that's, to me, that's where it begins, is again with the self, you know, by saying, where am I, you know, because every so often I'll run into somebody that I think's kind of quirky, you know, and then I think, well, it's not really a quirk. That's, you know, it's more than that. And can I heal that in me, you know?
What struck me when you were telling the story about the woman is the people that gathered around her were holding the vision for what they wanted. They were including her and holding her and supporting her and doing what, you know, it wasn't just about telling the other woman she was wrong. It was about holding this woman and bringing her into the circle,
Yes.
you know. Interesting.
Yeah.
It is interesting, and it's interesting how it plays out just in our everyday life all the time. You know, I'm just thinking about a situation yesterday when I was talking with a friend about the situation he was in, and you know, him having a conflict with someone, and you know, I kept saying, you know, what is it that what do you want to see happen from this situation? You know, what do you want to see? And it's really, again, it is about our vision. Somebody said it all starts with personal responsibility and being the change you want to see. You know, and how am I being that, and how do I show up? You know,
Yes.
wow.
Yeah. It's yeah, and I love your show too, because relationship, I think, is that's probably the hardest relation, you know, the intimate relationship one has with one's partner, because that's where I get to see myself up close and personal, you know, just like the mirror is like right there, you know, and so I get to be, and it all starts there, you know. It's like taking personal responsibility, being the person I want to be, um, being the, it's not, there was I remember years ago, I was listening to this couple speak, and he was in his mid 80s. I think she was early 80s. He was mid 80s. And he said, you know, he was talking to a group of us. It's not so important that you find the right person. It's important you be the right person for you.
Mm.
And I went, oh yeah, you know, because it would be really easy to just say to my husband, you know, if you changed, it would make me really happy, you know. It's like,
Oh, come on. You've said that. Don't tell us you haven't.
well, I have. And he, of course, knowing this philosophy, like throws it right back, like, oh no, come on, let's go. Let's talk about where's the middle here.
Well,
So,
I can say that from experience myself. So,
and then it goes out from there with a community, and like in your relationship, how beautiful that is, that you're able to encompass the world, you know, that you're willing to take it out into a radio program and talk about it from that perspective, because I think ultimately there's no personal experience that isn't universal as well.
Mm.
I think you're right. I think that's one of those things that as I've grown, have seen, that generally it's just whenever I think it's only me, it's because I'm trying to keep thinking I'm special. and it ain't all that special. That's just what it is, right?
And if I'm special, I don't have to change.
Right.
I can just be
Right.
special. I can continue that specialness. Yes, I have the special gene as well.
Well, I have the we're all special. But I think it's by understanding truly who we are. I mean, and this is right back to what you said about doing the work. By understanding who we are and that we are special, to be able to understand that we're just everybody's, we're the mirror. There's nothing outside of that. And so it's so much of it, I think, is really about the willingness to learn about each other and to just, honor what we don't know, open that space to what we don't know. So
Yeah, we want to be extraordinary compared to, instead of realizing that the extraordinary is the definition of what's been created, and we're all the same in that regard. We're all extraordinary. We're all special. So, Reverend Martha, is there anything that you would just put a bow on around how we continue to be in conversation around the world and with one another and that kind of stuff?
Wow, great question. I think it's an invitation first to the self to stay open, to having these conversations, and then those people appear. Of course, it's the law of attraction, and then when that person does appear, it's those like Ernest Holmes says, you can't pray for something and then complain when you get it, and so, which sometimes I have, I'm like, I didn't mean it that way, I didn't know it would look like that. But I think in terms of and you both have said it already, is just seeing the self in other, there is a oneness. And if this person or this situation happens to be confronting me, you in the moment, then there's something to be learned. And I think the thing about pain is that the thing about pain is that it usually, especially ancestral pain that comes up, is that, like, this happened to me as a kid, or it's something that my family has dealt with, or that kind of thing, that it's the irony is that often the pain doesn't come up to be healed unless you're safe enough to have it be healed. That's the irony. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't look good. It's like the dark night of the soul, but it was never safe enough for it to come up before that very moment. And so when it comes up, ironically, it comes up at just the right time. And so, as weird as this is going to sound, I've started now, when the pain does come up, or I do have that dark night of the soul, it's kind of like, oh, thank God you're here, because it's been operating the whole time, right? It's been there. But thank God you're here, that I can recognize it consciously and address it. And so, so if there's anything standing in the way, this is a long answer to your question. So if there's anything standing in the way of branching out, of reaching out, then then that's where that pain is going to come up, or the angry thoughts are like, no, I'm not like that, oh, I'm not like that person. No, but now my eyes have seen it, right? And so I see what I see with. So Well, maybe I don't want to be like that person, but maybe I am, or that at the very least, whatever that is, it gets to get healed in me. There's forgiveness work to be done, perhaps, and usually it's forgiveness for the self, really. So in reaching out and branching out and making the world bigger and more inclusive, often there's some stuff to walk through, some stuff, and and once that gets cleared, oh my God, it becomes a nice, like the world becomes a better place, even if it's just around me, it's like, well, we can sit in her presence now because, she's not quite as angry as she used to be.
Yeah, it like clears a pathway.
Right. So yeah,
Well,
it's,
thank you.
yeah.
Thanks so much, Reverend Martha. It's been a quick hour.
Yes, it has.
Oh my
And
God.
we've had a lot of thank yous for you for being here and what you've said. So I just want to note that. Thank you, everyone who's been with us, hanging out.
And of course, you're welcome to come back anytime. We'd love to hear, when things are going on or how people can support, the global works as well.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for inviting me today. I just love you two. I think you're just like the cutest couple ever. So like really a great couple. So thank you for inviting me and inviting me to talk with you.
Well, you're welcome. We maintain our healthy relationship by keeping a chasm of 1,000 miles between us.
All right, everybody. So thank you for joining us. Thank you to Reverend Sherry and John and Myrna and Facebook users out there and people who are watching later. Wayne, of course. And we are looking forward to seeing you next week, where we will rock the love all over again. So see you then.
Bye.